At my sister's bridal shower, my mom held up my gift bag, laughed, and said, "Leave it there. Nobody here cares what you brought." The whole table smirked. I set a small box in front of her and said, "Open mine last." She lifted the lid, and my father stood up so fast. His chair nearly crashed behind him. 1 second before we dive in, we put out fresh stories every day, and if you don't want to miss any of them, just tap subscribe. Right now, it's free, it's fast, and it keeps you locked in with everything we're dropping. Okay, let's get into today's story. The small box was 5 inches wide, 3 inches tall, wrapped in brown paper with no ribbon. It sat on the passenger seat for the whole drive to the bridal shower. At one red light, my hand moved it to the glove compartment, then changed its mind and put it back. The thing inside that box had been sitting in a drawer in my apartment for almost 2 years. Today was the first time it had left my home. My alarm went off at 6:14. Coffee first. The small French press on the counter, the kitchen table, the window filling in slowly with gray light. The gift bag for the shower sat next to the coffee cup, lavender tissue, a bow, the kind of thing you carry into a room and everyone sees you carrying. The small box was on the other side of the table, still in its brown paper. My hand did not touch it. 2 years in a drawer means you don't need to check what's inside. At 7, the dresser drawer came out. Almost nothing left in it. A watch I hadn't worn in a year. A small index card with a date in my handwriting. August 14th, 2 years ago. The watch went on. The card stayed. The invitation had arrived 3 weeks late, hand-delivered by my aunt, who said my mother had been busy with the planning. The envelope had a bent corner and the wrong middle initial for my name. No RSVP card inside. The RSVP went in by phone the next morning. My mother's voice on the line had the sound of a woman who had been counting on silence. Shower, shave, dress. Green shirt, gray jacket, no tie. The river house was 40 minutes away. The invitation said 11:30, which meant my mother wanted everyone there by 11 so she could arrange the room before her guests arrived. The drive was the drive. The exits to my parents' part of town came and went, the ones I hadn't taken in 4 years. The box stayed in the passenger seat. Somewhere around 6 miles in, the road disappeared and nothing was in my head except the weight of the box against the edge of the seat. After that, the road got full attention. The parking lot came into view at 11:27. The engine went off. 11 minutes in the driver's seat. A valet parked 3 cars. My aunt walked in through the front doors carrying a silver-wrapped present. 2 women I didn't recognize followed her a minute later, laughing about something, their heels clicking on the pavement. At one point, the gift bag moved from the passenger seat to the lap and back again. The small box went from the seat into the inside pocket of my jacket. It pressed against my chest. The weight of it was there on every breath. At 11:38, the car door opened. The parking lot air was warm, in a faint smell of hot asphalt, and the kitchen exhaust from the river house drifting across the lot. The walk from the car to the canopy was about 40 feet. A valet at a wooden podium looked up. A small nod passed between us. The river house had a private dining room in the back, behind a frosted glass wall. A hostess in a black dress asked which party. The Callahan shower. She smiled the way people smile at someone they don't know and led me through. Women's voices carried through the frosted glass. Laughter. A few high voices talking over each other. The sound of a room that was already full and already warm. The hostess opened the door and held it. The sound changed. The voices got louder and then softer as the women closest to the door noticed someone coming in. The room was full. 40, maybe 45 women. A long table down the center, already set, with a centerpiece of white and pink flowers tall enough to block half the faces on the opposite side. A smaller table against the wall for gifts, already stacked with wrapped boxes and tissue paper bags. A table in the corner with champagne flutes and a glass pitcher of orange juice. My sister Claire sat at the head of the table in a cream-colored dress, her 4 closest friends filling the chairs around her. My mother stood near the gifts table, arranging something with both hands, the way she arranges everything, with full ownership. My father was in a chair near the window, the only other man in the room, holding a glass of water he was not drinking. My mother spotted me first. She turned. Her face arranged itself. "Oh," she said. "You came." "Came." Her eyes moved to the gift bag, so then to my face, then to the gifts table. She reached out and took the bag from my hand. "I'll put it with the others." "Thank you." The bag went on the table, at the end, tucked behind two larger gifts so it would not be visible from where Claire was sitting. She didn't say anything else. She walked back toward the head of the table without looking back. My father had watched all of this. When my eyes found him, his were on his water glass. No wave, no small signal of recognition. He took a small sip and set the glass back down. The hostess put me at the far end of the table, near the door, nobody on my left. The centerpiece between me and Claire. A slight lean to the right showed her shoulder. A slight lean to the left showed the door. The chair placement was not an accident. My mother had made choices like this my whole life. Who sat where? Which gift got opened first? Who spoke at the toast? The chair at the end was the chair she always chose for me. My aunt sat across from me, 2 seats down. She smiled without meeting my eyes. The cousin on my right, my aunt's daughter, a woman in her 40s named Tess, looked at me when I sat down. "Hi." "Hi, Tess. Good to see you." "You too." Her eyes held mine a second longer than a hello needed. Then she turned back to the woman on her other side and picked up a conversation about a renovation. A woman I did not know took the chair diagonally across from me. Older, mid-60s, well-dressed, a small brooch on her collar. The fiancé's mother. She had driven in from out of state for the shower. When her eyes met mine, something crossed her face, the careful hello of someone who has heard about you before meeting you. Yeah, at noon, my mother stood at the head of the table next to Claire and gave a short speech about gathering to celebrate love and new beginnings. My name did not come up. Claire's name came up 4 times. Claire added her own thank you. She thanked her bridesmaids, the fiancé's mother, and everyone who has supported this family through everything. A sentence that sounded like it included me but did not. A few women glanced my way. Most did not. My father was easier to watch than my mother during the speeches. The chair by the window was not where he was supposed to sit. On the way in, he had been standing at the head of the table like that was his seat. And then, my mother had touched his elbow and pointed him to the window. He had gone. He had sat. His water glass had stayed in his hand since. Lunch came out. The conversation moved past me. At the far end of the table, nobody seemed to notice me. Tess asked a short question now and then. Short answers went back. At one point, she said, without looking up from her salad, "Your jacket looks good." It was the kind of sentence people say when they want you to know they see you but don't want to make it a thing. 2 seats down, the fiancé's mother was making conversation with a woman I did not know. At one point, she glanced toward my end of the table and then away. The quick glance of someone checking whether the person she had been told about matched the description. The first line from my mother aimed at me came around 12:40. She stood near the gifts table talking to 2 women and raised her voice just enough for the sentence to carry. "And of course, he's always been the quiet one. We never know what he's up to," said warmly. The 2 women laughed politely. One of them glanced over, a sip of water, glass back down. Tess's mimosa had sat untouched since I arrived. My mother's eyes flicked over from across the room. Not obviously, just enough. That look was 32 years old. She was testing the weather, seeing what she could get away with. Games after lunch, a quiz about the bride, a word scramble, a game where guests guessed which baby photo was Claire. Low participation on my end. 1 correct answer, 2 wrong on purpose. Claire laughed and said, "He's hopeless," and the table laughed with her. My mother laughed hardest. During the games, my mother moved through the room. She stopped at different guests, touched shoulders, leaned in to whisper, laughed at things nobody else could hear, like she was working the audience. Every few minutes, her eyes swept past my end of the table without stopping, the way a searchlight passes a spot it has already checked. Between games, she walked past my chair on the way to the bathroom and paused. Her eyes did not come down. "You're eating all right? You look thin." "Fine." "You barely touched the chicken." "Ate the chicken." "Well, good." She moved on. Tess put her spoon down. She did not look up. The next game started. Another quiz, this one about wedding traditions. My mother took the opportunity to stand and tell a story about Claire's engagement, how Claire had called her that night crying from happiness, how they had stayed on the phone for 2 hours. She told it to the room the way she told everything to the room, with warmth, with timing, or with the specific kind of generosity that has a fence around it. The story was about Claire, and it was about my mother, and it was about nobody else. 40 women listened and smiled. Some of them looked at Claire. Some of them looked at my mother. None of them looked at me or at the window where my father sat. A few minutes later, a server came in with fresh mimosas. She was young, maybe 22, working carefully. Leaning over to place a glass near my aunt, she bumped the centerpiece slightly. A flower shifted. My mother saw it. Her voice came out sharp. "Careful. That arrangement cost more than your shift." The server straightened the flower with 2 fingers and moved on down the table. Her face did not change. My niece, 8 years old, sitting near Claire, flinched. Shoulders up, back down. Oh, the fast flinch of a child who knows that voice, who has heard it turn before and knows what comes after. Nobody else at the table seemed to see it. My eyes caught it because they had been on her without either of us knowing why. Something moved in my chest. Half a second of wanting to stand up and say something on behalf of a child too small to speak for herself. My hand reached for a fork instead. Turned it once. Set it down. Under the tablecloth, my left hand had gone tight on my thigh. The hand opened. Tess, beside me, spoke quietly. "I like her." "Who?" "The server." She didn't flinch. "No, she didn't." My mother came back from the bathroom. She stopped at the head of the table and said something to Claire. They both laughed. Claire looked down the table at me once, quickly, then looked away. My mother sat down next to her and put her hand on Claire's arm. The two of them leaned together for a moment, heads close, the mother-daughter performance that had been running my whole life. Then my mother straightened, took a sip of water, and scanned the room. Her eyes moved across each guest. She was taking inventory, counting her allies. At 1:15, Claire made her way down the table. Her hand settled on my shoulder. Light. Owned. "Hey, can I borrow you for a second?" In the hallway, the glass door closed behind us. Her smile was the smile she used for things she had practiced. "I just want today to be good. For Mom. For me. You know how she gets." "I know." "So don't make it weird, okay? Whatever happened between you guys, today isn't the day." "It's not weird." "Right, I know. I just wanted to say it." "You said it." She looked at me for a second. Her smile adjusted. Then her eyes shifted to the glass door, and she lowered her voice. "I told Jake's mom that things between us are fine, by the way. She asked about you last week and I told her we'd worked everything out, so don't say anything that makes that not true." "You told her we'd worked everything out." "Because it's easier. Because she doesn't need to know our business." "What did you tell her, exactly?" "That you were busy with work for a while and that's why you weren't around and that things are fine now. Which they will be, if you let today be normal." "Normal?" "Yes, normal. Is that so hard?" "No." She studied my face. She was looking for something and she was not finding it. Whatever she expected to see, whatever she had been trained by our mother to expect from me, was not on my face. After a second, she turned, opened the glass door and walked back in. I followed her. She took her seat next to our mother, who immediately leaned over and whispered something. Claire shook her head. Back in my chair. Tess glanced over. She did not ask. The gifts started at 1:45. The ritual was predictable. The maid of honor brought each present from the gifts table. Claire held it up, thanked the giver by name. The table clapped. Someone wrote it down on a small card. My mother worked the order from her standing spot near the gifts table, handing each present to the maid of honor, saving the smaller ones for the middle. With each gift, she added her own line. A woman down the table gave Claire a set of linen napkins. My mother held them up before passing them on and said, "Oh, these are gorgeous. She'll treasure these." A bridesmaid's gift was a framed photo of the couple. My mother said, "I knew someone would do that. I just knew it." Her voice carried across the room every time, warm and sure, as if the gifts were arriving for her approval before they reached her daughter. The guests smiled at each comment. My mother collected those smiles the way some people collect glasses at a party, one at a time, carried carefully, never put down. Around 2:10, she did something else. She slid the gifts table about a foot from where it had been. Not far. Just enough that it was no longer close to my end of the long table. Then she moved two of the smaller gifts, including my lavender bag, into a spot she could reach without turning her body. My father's eyes tracked the move. His fork paused mid-bite on the chocolate cake, held for a second, then continued. He had been eating slowly all afternoon, the careful eating of a man who is keeping his hands busy so they don't have to do anything else. Tess's mimosa had been sitting there almost 3 hours. The surface of the juice had gone cloudy. The maid of honor brought the next gift, then the next. The pace picked up. A candle, a gift card, an envelope from an uncle who had not come. Each one opened, held up, thanked, written down. The rhythm of it was steady and predictable, which is what made what happened next so loud. 20 gifts in, with 3 to go, my mother reached for my lavender bag. She held it up, looked at it, looked at me across the room. She smiled the wide performance smile, the one that meant she was about to do something for the audience. "Oh, this one. Let me see." She lifted it slightly, weighing it in her hand like a prop. "Leave it there. Nobody here cares what you brought." The table smirked. Not everyone. Most of them. The fast, surprised reaction of people who are not sure it's a joke, but the woman saying it is laughing, so they follow. Claire laughed. My aunt laughed. The bridesmaids laughed. 2 women near me smirked openly. The fiancé's mother did not laugh. She looked at the tablecloth. She had been in the room for less than 3 hours and she was already learning how this family worked. Tess did not laugh. Her knuckles were white on her glass. My father's eyes went to the tablecloth in front of him. His fork was still in his hand, but it had stopped moving. My hand went into my jacket pocket. The small box came out, still in its brown paper. I stood up. The chair made a small sound behind me. I walked around the long table, past the 2 bridesmaids who looked up as I passed, past the aunt who had laughed, who stopped laughing, past Claire's chair. Claire turned her head slightly as I went by. Her eyes tracked me, but she did not say anything. I stopped at the head of the table, next to my mother. The room went quiet the way rooms go quiet when something unplanned is happening. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. A woman down the table set her glass down carefully. The maid of honor, who had been reaching for the next gift, let her hand drop. The box went down on the tablecloth in front of my mother. One finger pushed it about an inch toward her. "Open mine last." Her eyes went to the box. Her eyes came to mine. The smile was still on her face, but it had stopped moving. "Nathan." "Open mine last." I walked back to my seat and sat down, my hands folded flat on the tablecloth. Tess's eyes found mine. She said nothing. My mother stood at the head of the table with the box in front of her. Her hand hovered above it without landing. After a few seconds, she laughed, a flat, fake sound, and said, "Well, how mysterious." The laugh landed wrong. She heard it herself. Her face adjusted. The smile came back, but it was working harder now. The maid of honor looked at her. Claire looked at her. "Mom, open it." "All right, fine, all right." She picked up the box, turned it in her hands. She looked at the brown paper for a second too long. Her fingers found the tape at the seam, paused, found it again. Her fingers slid under the tape. The paper came apart. Plain cardboard underneath. No branding, no decoration, 5 inches by 3 inches. The lid taped shut. She cut the tape with her fingernail. She lifted the lid. Her face changed. She did not scream. She did not drop the box. Her mouth parted, and the color went out of her skin in a way you could see from the far end of the table. Her eyes came up. The room had gone quiet. Not the quiet of people waiting politely. The quiet of 42 women holding their breath without knowing they were holding it. What is this? No answer. She reached in and lifted out a small black audio recorder. Slim, the size of a highlighter. She held it up. Everyone at the table saw it. Then her eyes went past it, back into the box, to the second object. A folded envelope. Her hand moved toward it and stopped. She did not touch it. The second object stayed where it was. Nathan, what is this? The room waited. Two of the bridesmaids were looking at each other. The woman who had smirked earlier was no longer smirking. My aunt had both hands flat on the table in front of her. The fiancé's mother had gone still, her brooch catching the overhead light. Claire had leaned back in her chair. Her hand was on the edge of the table. Tess was not looking at the box. She was looking at me. I stood up, walked around the long table one more time, stopped next to my mother's chair, reached for the recorder. She did not hand it over. May I? Her eyes went to me, to the recorder in her hand, to the room. She held it out. My hand closed around it, an old model, simple black plastic. One button pressed. A small light came on. Another button pressed. Her voice came out of the speaker, clear enough for every person at the table to hear. You were a mistake. You were always a mistake. I should have given you away when you were a baby. The recorder went down on the table next to the open box. A fork touched a plate somewhere down the table and nobody picked it up. My mother was standing where she had been standing. Her hand was still raised where she had given me the recorder. The small black device on the tablecloth was the only thing in the room with anything to say. Nobody was looking at anyone. The silver-wrapped gift the maid of honor had been holding was back on the gifts table, placed there by a hand that moved on its own. Somebody's phone vibrated against a purse on the floor. No hand reached for it. Claire's face was white. Tess was gripping the edge of the tablecloth with both hands. Near the window, my father's breathing had changed. His shoulders were going up and down in a way you could see from across the room. His eyes were locked on the second object in the box, the one my mother had seen and not touched. He stood up. His chair scraped back hard enough to tip. It caught the edge of the window seat and did not fall, but the sound of it made 3 women turn their heads. The scrape across the wooden floor was louder than anything he had said all afternoon. He had not raised his voice all afternoon. He had not said 10 sentences all afternoon. He started walking. Down the table. Past the bridesmaids. Past my aunt, whose hand came up to touch his sleeve and then did not. Past the maid of honor, who had not sat back down. Past Claire, who said something to him, maybe his name, but he did not stop. He reached the box, looked into it. He saw the envelope. He knew the handwriting. He had seen it before. He stood there for a moment. Then he turned and walked back down the length of the table and stopped beside my chair. He did not sit down. He stood next to me. My mother had not moved. Bill? Nothing. Bill? Sit down. His eyes stayed on the wall. Bill? The fiancé's mother was watching my mother. Not shocked exactly. More like a woman who had gotten a letter once and been unsure what to make of it, and was now starting to understand. My niece looked up at Claire. Mommy, why is Grandma saying that on the tape? Claire's hand went to her mouth. Her shoulders locked. Mommy? Claire said quietly. Not now, honey. But she said she wished she'd never had Uncle Nathan. I heard her, honey. Not now. The girl's eyes came down the length of the table and found mine. She was trying to understand something she was too young for. No smile from me. No nod. Our eyes held for a moment. Then she put down her spoon. Tess, who had not spoken all afternoon, spoke now. From her seat, in a voice that was calm and quiet and clear enough to reach every corner of the room. It was August, 2 years ago. I remember the day. She was looking at Claire, not at my mother. Aunt Linda called me the next morning crying. She said Nathan had lost his mind. She said he'd called her up in the middle of the night screaming at her. She spent 20 minutes telling me every detail. I sat and I listened. I didn't say anything because I didn't know what to say. A pause. That wasn't what happened, was it, Aunt Linda? My mother's fingers tightened on the back of her chair. Released. Tightened again. Was it? Nothing. Even the woman 2 seats down from me, the one who had smirked at the "nobody cares" line, was now sitting with her hands in her lap. Her smirk was long gone. She was looking at the table in front of her like she wanted to be anywhere else. Tess looked at Claire. I've been listening to her version of things for 30 years. I don't want to listen anymore. Her napkin went on the table. She did not stand up. Not yet. But her napkin was on the table. The maid of honor was standing between the gifts table and the long table. She had not sat back down. She was looking at my mother the way you look at someone you have known for years and are seeing for the first time. My aunt, the one who had laughed at the "nobody cares" line, the one who had delivered the invitation 3 weeks late, was sitting with her hand over her mouth. On her other hand was flat on the table. She was looking at my mother too, but differently. She was looking at her sister and recalculating something, running back through years of conversations and dinners and phone calls and figuring out which parts of what she had been told were true. Claire finally lifted her hand from her mouth. Her eyes came up to our mother. Then, slowly, her eyes moved to the fiancé's mother. The fiancé's mother looked back at her. The lie Claire had told last week, the one about everything being fine, was in the room now. It sat between the two of them across the width of the long table. Claire's face showed the exact moment she understood that the woman her fiancé's mother had been told about and the woman standing in this room were two different people, and that Claire had been the one who made them different. She said nothing. She did not stand up to defend our mother. She did not reach for her. She stayed in her chair. The bride at her own shower, sitting in the seat of honor, doing nothing. My father reached down and picked up a cloth napkin from the table next to my place setting. He held it in both hands, folded it once, held it again. A man who has been quiet for 3 hours and has just been given a reason to stand needs something to do with his hands first. I stood up, picked up my jacket from the back of the chair. No look at my mother, no look at Claire. I walked toward the door of the private dining room. The walk down the length of the long table was the longest walk in the room. Every chair I passed was occupied by a woman who was watching me go. Some of them had laughed at the "nobody cares" line. Some of them had smirked. Some of them had done nothing. None of them said a word as I passed. Behind me, my father's chair scraped again. I did not turn around. The door. Through. The hostess was in the hallway. Her polite smile was fading. She said, "Sir." My feet did not stop. Through the main dining room, past 2 tables of people eating lunch who did not know what had just happened 20 feet from them. The front doors. Out. The sun was bright. The parking lot air smelled like hot asphalt. My car was where I had left it. In. Hands on the steering wheel. The passenger seat was empty. The gift bag was inside. The small box was inside. Nothing was in the car now except me and the weight of what had just played through a small black speaker in a private dining room. Footsteps in the rearview mirror. Tess was crossing the parking lot, purse on her shoulder, jacket over her arm. She reached the passenger side, opened the door, got in, closed it. Drive. The engine came on, out of the parking lot, onto the road. The river house shrank in the rearview mirror and then disappeared behind a curve. No words for a while. At a red light 4 miles out, my phone buzzed in the cup holder. A text from my father. 3 words. "Where are you?" No reply. The light turned green. Tess looked out the passenger window. After a minute, she spoke. "I should have said something years ago." "You said it today." A nod. "I heard her say things about you for years, Nathan. At Thanksgiving. At your grandmother's funeral. At family dinners where she spent half the evening telling people a version of something I knew wasn't true. I sat there, and I listened, and I said nothing. Because keeping the peace felt like the right thing to do." She paused. "It wasn't." "You said it today. That counts." She looked out the window again. A strip mall parking lot slid past. "There was a dinner, 3 years ago maybe. Your mother told Aunt Margaret that you'd stopped coming to family events because you were having personal problems. She said it quietly, like she was protecting your privacy. Margaret believed her. Everyone believed her. I was sitting right there and I knew the reason you stopped coming was because she told you not to. She stopped. I'm sorry. You said what you said. It mattered. Silence for another few miles. Her house came up. The driveway? Park. She did not move right away. Her eyes were on her own house like she had never seen it before. Are you going to be all right? Yes. Go inside. Tess. She opened the door, got out, walked up the path to her front door. Her hand went into her purse for the key. She found it, unlocked the door, and went inside. A wait until the door closed. Then the car backed out of the driveway. The drive home took 38 minutes. Most of it passed without much thought. The phone buzzed twice more. No look either time. Somewhere around the halfway point, the afternoon started turning into evening, the sky going from blue to something heavier, and the streetlights along the highway came on one section at a time. Inside the apartment, the French press was still on the counter, the coffee cup from the morning still in the sink. The windows had the last of the afternoon light, the kind that turns everything almost orange. Jacket on the hook, the bedroom, the dresser, the drawer. Open. Empty. On the watch on my wrist, the index card still there, August 14th. Nothing else. The drawer stayed open. In the morning, it was still open. Coffee. No check of the phone. The box was not in the drawer. The box was not in the apartment. The box was on a tablecloth in a private dining room 40 minutes away, and it was not mine anymore. And the drawer where it had lived for 2 years was empty, and it stayed that way.